Joining me in our Washington studio is Mark Fitzpatrick. He's an associate fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Let's talk about General Soleimani, Qasem Soleimani, and his Quds forces. Why is this man considered a hero in Iran and seen so differently in the West?
He's a hero in Iran because he has extended Iran's power. He's created front lines for Iran far away from Iran's own border so that terrorist attacks on Iran would be hit far away. He's protecting Iran in the views of most Iranians. For Americans, he is the man responsible for hundreds of deaths of American soldiers in Iraq 10 years ago when they shipped in these projectiles that hit the bottom of American armored vehicles, killed and wounded many Americans. So most American military from that time have a deep and abiding hatred of Qasem Soleimani.
So regardless of how he's viewed in East by Americans, was his assassination on Iraqi soil by Americans in a drone strike violation of international law?
I'm not sure it was a violation of international law. I'm not a lawyer. The man had blood on his hands. I think it was certainly a violation of Iraqi sovereignty. But the more important question was it wise? Was it wise to retaliate, even if retaliation might have been legal and morally justified? Was it wise? And I think we are seeing today that the repercussions that are going to come from this are enthralling the region in a greater escalation that is to nobody's benefit.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says America is, in fact, safer now.
Yeah, he has to say that, doesn't he? I don't see how America is safer. Any American officials in the Middle East or even beyond have to worry about being targets now of retaliation, not just by Iran, which has said they would only attack American military targets, but by all of the network of influence that Iran has developed, the Soleimani has developed. They're going to attack American interests, American citizens, American companies out of solidarity with him. So no, America is not safe. I'm sorry to say.
What about Donald Trump underestimating Iranian nationalism, Mark? I mean, we've seen as Iran's foreign minister described these scenes today as sea of humanity. Iranians appear to be united now. Just a few months ago, they were out in the streets protesting against their government.
I think this is another fallout that wasn't anticipated. The way that Iranian internal dissent was going was certainly into America's favor, criticism of the government, but now it's all been reversed. Now, of course, some of the chanting, the processions in the streets, people feel they have to do this, but by my eyes, a lot of it is genuine. Most of it is genuine.
I mean, these are the kinds of crowds, Mark, we haven't seen in decades.
Yeah, you know, I read what U.S. government officials say and what their supporters say on Twitter, and they're trying to downplay this. But I think you're right. These are massive demonstrations. There's a nationalism here that I don't think Trump took into account when he made this. I don't know if he took anything into account. He made a spur-of-the-moment decision without thinking through the consequences.
And once again, going back to General Soleimani, how instrumental was his elite Quds forces in really collaborating with the United States in the fight against ISIS?
That's an interesting aspect of it. We were allies with the Quds Force in fighting against ISIS. The Quds Force and the militia that it directed and led in Iraq were very instrumental in pushing back ISIS. But so was the United States. I mean, Iranians tend to say, well, the United States didn't do anything, we did it all. No, both sides were instrumental. They were de facto allies. And ISIS is not, they're not gone. They're still here and there. They could come back. And I'm afraid they will now if the United States is forced out of the region.
Are these two countries going to go at war with each other? It's the question a lot of people are asking. Of course, Iran would say U.S. has technically declared war with this assassination.
Well, I think the United States has waged war, economic war on Iran for the last almost 2 years now in pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, trying to stop all Iran oil sanctions. The assassination of General Soleimani was probably an act of war in itself. But are we going to war? I think there will be an asymmetric war. It won't be a conventional war. And it won't be fought just between Iran and the United States. It'll be Iran's proxies or groups that pledge solidarity with Soleimani that Iran doesn't necessarily control.